Welcome to Santos on Sports, along with my partner Chris. I am Paul. Welcome in. We're all ready to roll here as the football season gets closer. Thank you to our sponsors, Scotty's Pub, located at 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Citywide glass with three, not one, not two, but three locations to serve you best at 425 State Road in Dartmouth. Additional locations in Fall River and Taunton. We have Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, Massachusetts, where you can play tennis. You can play pickleball, and you can do a whole lot more to stay in shape like Chris Santos is. And attorney John Seed at 156 8th Street in New Bedford. And you can go to johnseedlaw.com to get more information. How are you? Are you feeling football this morning?
I am fired up, Paul. This is where it begins for me and you, and especially for the teams that I root for. And no better than tonight as Notre Dame gets their season started as they play the Ohio State Buckeyes in a big matchup, 2 versus 5, right off the bat on a Saturday night, 7:30, prime time. I got the man cave already set up. I can't wait for this one. I really hope Notre Dame comes out and starts to play some good football. Sometimes they struggle against the top teams, but I'm hoping for a good start with their new head coach and their team, and they get fired up. But it's football season. It's college this week, NFL next week, and we're getting ready to talk about the Pats. And I want to give one shout out to a good softball friend of mine, Chad Barreto. His son, Cameron Barreto, is the defensive tackle starting today for Colorado State as they go to the Big House and take on Michigan. So good luck to a Wareham local in Cameron Barreto and Colorado State as they travel to take on Michigan today. So enjoy that trip, Chad, and good luck with your son.
Absolutely, 100%. Big time college football starting tonight on a Saturday night. The main cave is ready. And then next week will be football Thursday night. And then, of course, the Patriots next week. And Chris Santos had a question he wanted to toss out there. The question being, what do you think the Patriots record is going to be? Give us a call at 774-762-6234. What will the Patriots record be and why? And that reminds me, Chris, I'm a little frustrated, a little irritated. That does happen. It does happen on occasion. I think you've seen this before. But think about this, right? Brady leaves, right? Then we have the Cam Newton year. Right. Patriots scratch and claw and the greatest coach of all time, get you to 7-9. Then Kraft is so embarrassed, he opens up the checkbook, hands it to Belichick. Belichick signs all these players in free agency, but a lot of them are B-rate free agents. Maybe they should have waited until this year. Okay. So now they go 10-7 with a new young quarterback who makes some great strides. In the offseason, he buffs up. He strengthens his arm. Now we get to year 3 of the rebuild. And now it's like, wait a minute. We're going to rip it up and start the whole thing over. We're going to change the offense. We're going to bring these 2 bozos in to run the offense. We're going to let McDaniels go and not pay him. Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to simplify it? And you see Mac Jones throwing down the tablet and everything. I think it's a step backwards. And why does it have to be? This is year 3. 1, 2, 3. You're supposed to get better every year, aren't you?
I agree. But when you got rid of, the GOAT of quarterbacks and you went with Newton and you saw that situation, I think it's now to the process that Bill says, okay, I'm going to get the players that fit my system. And that's where I get kind of confused on, because now, are you playing just a system or are you playing football? And so, there's kind of 2 different scenarios when it comes to that. And Bill likes, his system and the way it goes. So in this year 3, even though 10-7 and made the playoffs, you would hope that system is not changed and it gets better by the people that you put into that system. And that's what Bill has done in the past very well. Now, can that happen again this year to make it better? Well, obviously, it's only been 2 preseason games, and it hasn't looked good offensively for the New England Patriots. We saw a lot of frustration in the last one, at least trying to get down the field to score a touchdown. They have not been able to do that. In Mac Jones on the field in 2 preseason games, he was 4 for 8 for 61 yards his first preseason that he played, and then he went 9 for 13 for 71 against the Raiders. And as you just said, Paul, very frustrated throwing tablets, talking to refs, going to Patricia, sulking on the sidelines. Not typical right now. So that means to me that he's not happy, which means the offense isn't happy, and they're struggling and they look unimpressive at times. The outside zone scheme, which they're trying to put in, has been trouble for them. So that's another one that they're going to have to shape up. And then guys that you've got in, a Nelson Aguilar, a Kendrick Bourne, a Devontae Parker. Time to step up. Hunter Henry, Jonah Smith, your time to come through. So a lot going on, Paul, and the offensive line is the biggest part to keep Mac secure, keep Mac in the pocket. So guys like Wynn, Strange, Brown, and Oniwu really need to step their game up to keep Mac Jones and this offense happy. It's not to say that it can't work, Paul. It's just a matter of how fast can they develop it, because you need time, you need reps, and you need chemistry. To me as a coach, I think you need those three things when you put in a new system. Can they do that fast in the NFL? Sure, why not? Have they done it yet? Maybe not to the standards what New England Patriot fans want. And so that's why they're nervous going into week one.
Well, we had Karen Garigian on. She explained why he's doing it and gave the reasons 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4 why he's doing it. But
Yes.
I still ask the question, yeah, but he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to do. He could have got a coach that could have kept the offense that was going before going. I mean, he could have done things differently with the different free agents that he got. He could have done things differently, especially with the coaches that he has there. I don't know. I don't like it, but we have that question out there. 774-762-6234. What do you think the Patriots record is going to be? Good morning. You're on Santos on Sports.
Talk to us.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good. I hate to be the guy who's thinking the sky is going to be falling, but 7-10 or 6-11 wouldn't be surprising me at all at this point. And listen, I hate to be the guy who looks at these preseason games because it is the preseason. It's
Yep.
But for me, it's just the way that the starters looked out there, and this is exactly what I was afraid of. Like first of all, you mentioned before the outside zone scheme. Excuse me.
Yep.
Whenever they tried to throw in a wrinkle of that Shanahan scheme, they couldn't block anything. Like I remember it was yesterday, that the first drive of that Raiders game, nice 9-yard completion to Devontae Parker. Then they tried to run outside with Ramondre Stevenson. Boom, 5-yard loss or something like that, and then a sack on the third play after that. So this is also one of the things I was afraid of with Patricia, not only being the offensive line coach, but also being the play caller. Dude, the offensive line can't block right now. So can you really kind of mix these two duties? And I much prefer him calling the plays over Joe Judge, even though I think it's kind of lesser of the two evils, because I think they're both hacks. But this is exactly what I was afraid of here. And this is because, like I mentioned a couple of times before, again, second-year quarterback, critical year of his development. And that's I'm not completely absolving Mac, because one of those interceptions that he threw in the Raiders game was absolutely horrible. There's 6 Raiders in that area, but so I looks like he's taking a step back. But I think a huge part of that is because of the doofuses around him.
Yeah, as I just said, of time, reps, and chemistry, that is something that this will have to work real fast. And what you want in preseason is your number ones against their twos, and you show that you can go right down the field and score. And in 2 preseason games, that didn't happen for Mac Jones in the offense. That's what makes me nervous compared to watching other teams when I see highlights of preseason and they go right down the field with their ones and they score. So if they were struggling against some maybe twos and guys who might be cut from the Raiders, and you're not scoring against them or moving the ball efficiently like they probably could, that makes you nervous as a New England fan. But that being said, we got you down at 7-10 or 6-11. To me, I think the first 4 games are huge for the New England Patriots. Then the next 4 games come in. So there's a band there with at Miami, at Pittsburgh, home to Baltimore, and at Green Bay. Let's take those 4 first and see what we think there. To me, it possibly could be 1-3. They always play pretty good against Pittsburgh, but at the same time, could struggle in Miami, could struggle in Green Bay, and even Baltimore at home. Their first home game could be interesting. If they get 2-2 out of that, I think that would be okay for them. Then think about the next 4. Detroit at home, at Cleveland, Chicago at home, and then at the Jets. Now, a traditional New England team could go easily 4-0 against those teams and come out 6-2. Can we see that from this group? Can they get better as that season goes on with Bills teams has? That will be interesting to me because it's that lullaby after the first 4 where the teams are not so, under 500 teams that they usually take advantage of. Be curious to see how they do.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the schedule right now. I just pulled it up in front of my computer. Pittsburgh's going to be a tough outing. Like I know Ben Roethlisberger isn't there anymore, but you guys probably know T.J. Watt is an absolute beast. That defensive line is always good, and both of the quarterbacks that they gotten, but whether it be Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, they've actually looked really, really good. And I've given Mitch Trubisky a lot of crap because I thought he sucked, but then slowly but surely I began to realize it's more on Matt Nagy coaching him. So getting him in a program like Pittsburgh has kind of, I don't want to say completely fixed him up. We'll have to see in this first preseason game. Not preseason game, excuse me, the regular season game, their opener. But that's an interesting storyline to see.
No, I have to agree with you there. And it'll be interesting because Bill usually plays Pittsburgh pretty good. And even when he goes to Pittsburgh, he plays them tough and usually wins those games. So that one, the second week, is real crucial to me to see how they do. Because they usually do well when they play Pittsburgh. So I'll be curious how they look in week 2.
Well, quick shout out to Mikey Kahn, who's looking in today. Thank you very much. Give us a call at 774-762-6234 and let us know what you think the Patriot record is going to be this year. And, we had Ryan calling in. Ryan's on the line right now. Ryan always says, well, I don't want to be the one that the sky is falling. And then the next week he calls, he goes, well, I don't want to be the bringer of bad news. And then the next week he calls. So I'm actually not surprised that you have that negative slant.
Well,
that's actually
listen.
That's actually good.
I'd rather listen to him than have to listen to Mikey Kahn talk about the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, exactly. Did you see? I don't know if he was being a wise guy, but Mr. Guarantee put up there that the Patriots are going to go 14-3. Now
I don't know about that.
He must have been joking. He had to have been joking.
I think there was some jokes there too.
But really, you're right. You look at that schedule, you talk about Pittsburgh and talk about these other teams in the middle. You can see the Patriots. I think you're probably safe in saying it's going to be somewhere between 7-10 and 10-7. That would be the safe way to go. But if you had to come up with a number, we'll come up with a number. But, those swing games, there are certain games that you're going to say, there's no way they're going to win that.
Sure.
It'd be a big upset to beat Buffalo. Then there's games where you say, yeah, they definitely should win that. But then there's like those 2, 3, 4 games in the middle there. Those are the ones that, if you can steal a couple of those. But I'm still worried though, Ryan, about, why do we have to rip this thing up in year 3? This is year 3. Why do we have to rip the thing up? Why don't we just keep going? Last year's offense, I don't think was really their problem.
I don't think so either. And which is why when, McDaniels first left, I was hoping that they would, kind of, I don't want to say branch out because he was a former assistant here, but go get Bill O'Brien, get someone in so it's a kind of a smooth transition because he runs the same system. Or at the very least, if you do want to run the Shanahan scheme, get someone who's actually coached in the scheme before. It was part of that tree, so this transition is a little bit smoother.
Exactly.
Well, we got Ryan down officially on paper now, Paul, 6-11 or 7-10. So I made sure I wrote that down. So when he calls back in the future, we'll say, hey, he was right on it. Or, hey, Ryan, we're not even close.
All right. So we're leaving some wiggle room there. You want to go with one or the other? So we just have it definitely down.
You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. 6-11. Let's go with that.
6-11. I'm certain.
With the greatest coach of all time.
Okay, 6-11.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much for your
Thanks, Ryan.
great contribution to our show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, take
All right,
care. 774-762-6234. Give us a call. What do you think the Patriots record is going to be? So now that we've asked everybody else, by the end of the show, we're going to have to give our own prediction. So let
of
me
course.
think about this a little bit. You have a number in mind. Don't say it now, but you have a number in mind, right?
For me personally,
Yes.
oh yeah, I do, and I, I'm breaking it down game by game
Mm-hmm.
of what I think. So I got the 17 game schedule right in front of me here, and so I've been kind of looking it over and what I think, and I usually kind of go by how Bill Belichick plays certain teams, and I think sometimes, he can win as a coach because other coaches fear Bill. They make mistakes, they make wrong decisions. We've seen that in the past. So I think there's sometimes he plays very well against certain teams, and he knows what they might call. He knows what he needs to get done and what to run against them. So a lot of that deals with the head coach persona. And I think as I look at this schedule, there's some certain games that click in my mind and say, he plays that team very well, and I think he'll do just fine. So I'll make my prediction at the end, Paul.
All right, maybe we can go game by game through there because there's definitely some games you
Absolutely.
think the Patriots, it's a definite win. And then there were some that are definite losses. And then there's those few in the middle that you kind of got to bob and weave a little bit and, different
Right.
things that can happen, But getting back to this free agency spending spree last year, it did feel like the Patriots were kind of embarrassed at the fact that they are fumbling around with Cam Newton and one of the weaker rosters in the league while Tom Brady goes down there and kind of waves it in their face and wins a Super Bowl the first year with somebody else.
Yeah.
Granted, he had an all-star team around him and blah, 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 but still he came through when he had to come through. And so the very next year, Kraft opens up the checkbook and he's spending money like a drunken sailor. But the problem is, looking back at it now, maybe not a bad idea to spend on some free agents, but maybe he should have held it back to this past year where you had people like Tyreek Hill out there. There's a big difference between, say, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Parker. You know what I'm saying? Now, Belichick might say, well, he can coach up the guy or whatever. You know what I mean? But how come the Patriots, this year when there were those first couple of weeks of free agency with those big name defensive linemen and then linebackers and wide receivers and people like that were out there, well, they blew all the money last year. You know what I mean? Maybe they should have saved some of that for this year because, Mac Jones doesn't have any of those big name Pro Bowlers out there like Tom Brady does, not to compare them, but I'm just saying, like they got all these kind of like B-rate free agents. So it doesn't look like what they did last year was the right thing either.
Well, when they did it the year before, you didn't know the players this year that were going to be free agents or out there at that time and to go get like a Tyreek Hill and stuff like that. So it was prior to that they went out and said, okay, what fills our needs? What fills our system? And the two that really stand out to me, Paul, is your tight ends. You spent a lot of money on Henry and Smith. And last year, it was not there for you. It has to be there this year. Those two players who you spent a lot of money on really need to come to the forefront of that offense and really help Mac and Mac find them to do what they need to do on offense. And to me, it starts with those two. And if it doesn't, then I can sit back and say, well, then you spent the wrong money on the wrong players. Then there's other guys that, yeah, he might be available, but does he, again, fit our system? Can he handle our play calls? Can he do it? And we've seen Patriots in the past grab some players that didn't work in their system, even though they were big names for other teams. And so, whether it works or whether it doesn't. So that's where Bill gets his philosophies and he gets with his coaches and say, okay, can we really, use this guy? So when Gronk left and they really didn't have much, they sat back and said, we got to rebuild with that system in a 2 tight end system at times, or 1 in the slot or whatever it is that they have. And they did with those 2. To me, those 2 have to have a big year for the New England Patriots because you spent all that money on them.
Right. And I think Bill likes the idea of taking like, a B-rate kind of free agent, somebody that's good but not great, somebody that he sees something in but nobody else does, and then turns them into somebody great rather than, saying, hey, let's go get Tyreek Hill. He likes to do it this other way. You know what I mean? But hey, in the end,
And he does it from the draft as well. He's not afraid to
right.
go to Rutgers and get somebody from Rutgers when he could get somebody from Alabama.
Right, exactly. So I mean, I think that's fine when it works.
Mm-hmm.
You think of Julian Edelman and some of these other people that he was able to find and so forth. And now you look back at him. I mean, hey, he brought in Gronk and stuff like that. Turned out to be perhaps the greatest tight end of all time. Of course, he had Brady throwing the ball to him and all that. Still a great tight end, obviously. I mean, he'd be a great tight end no matter who he's with. But why not at least take a little bit of your money and grab a couple of Pro Bowlers like a Tyreek Hill. I'm just throwing that name out there because, the thing is, they're going to have to play against him next week. So now what does that do for their quarterback when he's throwing to a guy like that? And you're over there fumbling around with, this new system and, you haven't got anybody to catch the ball like that. So like Tua, you must be like looking out there like, oh, this is great. I mean, hey, it still has to work. The system still has to work. I mean, teams may scheme against Tyreek Hill and all that, but still, he's one up advantage over what Mac Jones has to deal with.
Well, I mean, look where Tyreek Hill came from, too. I mean, he had Patrick Mahomes, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So that's number one. He's got Travis Kelce, who is a tremendous tight end. And so you got to watch out for him over the middle. He had a decent running game, some different things. So, again, they used him in a lot of formats and all that. Now, can Miami pull that off as well? Well, Tua Tagovailoa is no Patrick Mahomes right now. That's number one. So, Gesicki's their tight end. Okay, I don't think he's a Travis Kelce. So, Paul, it's where you are at certain times and how you fit in roles. So, I don't think Tyreek Hill is going to be having that same kind of year like he did with Kansas City. I'll be kind of surprised because I think now teams will sit back and say, okay, we're going to double Tyreek, which means Waddle becomes very important for the wide receiver core for Miami. And you look at things like that. So it just depends on how you fit in and where you're going and what you have surrounded by you to make you that type of player. And I thought he had it in Kansas City compared to maybe if he can have it in Miami.
Right. So it might be a situation where Bill looks at it like, rather spread it around a little bit, maybe, get a Hunter Henry and, get an Aguilar and, they did get Judon, which was certainly a number one kind of a player there on defense, although he did tail at the end of the year, but maybe he was injured. Who knows? They had a nice draft there, as far as Bondmore and so forth. And, there are good players, a lot of good players on the team. You know what I mean? Stevenson and Harris and so forth. And, of course, Thornton, they draft him, one of the speedier wide receivers that the Patriots ever draft in the second round. What happens? He gets hurt. So, I mean, they'll say that's part of the game, but that hurts, because that's a guy that, as Karen Garigian said, and we talked to her, I think, before he was injured, somebody that could really stretch the field and give the Patriots a different kind of a look when they go to the spread offense.
I agree. And that all being said, we could talk all day and give our opinion and think about this schedule that they're playing this year and what we can give for our record and say, okay, by this time they can probably get better. By this time, an injury could happen. There's a lot that can go on week by week, and it's very difficult, to make that, even though we're asking people to call in and give us what they think for their record. Or if you don't want to call in, just, type in, tell Paul, chat on it, and let us know. So, Mikey Con, you're out there. Let us know what you think the Patriots record's going to be, or other people who usually do. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk about it on here. But, Paul, you have to break it down week by week. That's the NFL. That's how it works. So, who knows? Week one, they could come out, throw the ball all around, run the thing, play tremendous defense, and win 35-0. And me and you would look at each other and go, "What the hell just happened?" And it could be the opposite way, and go down 35-0 and say, "We told you so." So that's the NFL, and you have to play it week by week, and see how it goes, and your matchups, how you fit in against this team. And where you can scheme and where you can get better and where you can blitz and where you can run and where you can go deep, all them things, that's why they have so many coaches and figure out the game plan week by week. So, I'm taking it first week at Miami and see how they do from there. and it tells you more. So I wasn't happy with what we saw in the preseason offensively. That needs to step up, and hopefully they're getting better as the weeks have gone on.
One of the things that was interesting, I saw an interview with Bill Belichick, and, they were asking him about, who was calling the plays, and, Matt Patricia's calling the plays or Joe Judge. It turns out it looks like it's going to be Matt Patricia.
Mm-hmm.
And he made an interesting comment that I did absolutely think was interesting. He said, hey, not taking anything away from Weiss, not taking anything away from McDaniels, but, he's only one person. So he doesn't just call the play like, okay, I'm going to call the play. What happens is, the wide receiver coach says, hey, the defense is doing this. Why don't you consider that? In the meantime, the offensive line coach is saying, hey, you know what? The defense is doing this. We got to switch to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the quarterback is saying, hey, I think I see an opening over here,
Mm-hmm.
So he takes all that information, and then the offensive coordinator goes, okay, I'm going to call X.
Right.
And then Bill Belichick said, and you know what? Even then, I might say, no, I don't want to call that. I want to call that. I'm the head coach. I'm the guy that finally decides the final say.
Right.
And then when the quarterback goes up to the line, he changes the play anyway.
You could call an audible and change it.
Right. So he's basically saying that's a much more collaborative effort than just, well, who's calling the play? And does that guy know what he's doing? I think it has more to do with the scheme and all that than maybe it does on game day. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. What do you think about that? This idea that it is a much more collaborative effort than just who's the offensive coordinator.
And the other interesting part, don't forget, Paul, you have to do this in 30 seconds.
Yes.
Or you get a delay of game.
Right.
So
right.
Think about how all that you just talked about has to go over their headsets that fast, that quick, and then get to Mac, who then hears it, goes to the huddle, comes up to the line, either runs that play or now sees something, walks up, points, makes an audible change, and then the whole thing goes. So a lot going on, as Bill said, that you heard or you read about. And so quite interesting how that whole process works. And, obviously not only with the New England Patriots, but every NFL team. And you have to do it in 30 seconds. So
Right.
a lot going on, absolutely. But again, Bill has to make the final decision, in my opinion, unless he says, hey, I'm just going to sit back. I'm not going to say a word until there's something I don't like. So if Matt runs the 3 plays and Bill says nothing, okay. If he does 2 and on the 3rd he calls and Bill says, no, I don't want that. I want this. Then whatever Bill said is what it is. I don't know how that works and what they think, but that's another possibility. So yeah, a lot of things that you have to consider in 30 seconds of time to get a playoff in the NFL.
And he did concede that it does happen sometimes that quick. But I think to be
Yes.
fair, also, he was also pointing out what happens after the series is over. How many times do we see, and we still see it with Mac Jones, we see it all across the league, Tom Brady, everybody. They go 3 and out, right? So now they punt. So now they show the sidelines, right? Tom Brady is there with a tablet. He's talking to Josh McDaniels, or Mac Jones is talking to Josh McDaniels.
Yep.
Hey, what were they doing in that first series? We got to do this. Then again, like I said, the offensive line coach is saying, hey, maybe we got to pull the tackle this way, that way, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Wide receiver coach is saying, hey, the safety's cheating this way. We got to send the guy that way, and then when they get the ball back, now the offensive coordinator takes all that information, tries to make an adjustment. And then Bill, the head coach, is listening to the whole thing, and then maybe he's like, hey, guys, I'm hearing all of what you're saying, but, I think we should call this. And then he even said, hey, look, I'm the head coach. You want to blame somebody, blame me. I'm the guy that gets the final say.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking anything away from McDaniels or any of these other guys. So I found that fascinating because, we're sitting on the sidelines, us fans, and we love to, do what we do. And, this guy doesn't know what he's doing and that guy knows what he's doing. So the fact that it's a much more collaborative effort, I thought was a little more comforting, but I still worry about, it's not just the game day decisions that the offensive coordinator has to make. What about all that preparation? What about, the criticism that, these guys that are there have never coached, in the days leading up to a game like this before, not on the offensive side of the ball anyway. So again, they're still ripping it up and starting over. And, that's got me a little concerned. I mean, this game against Miami, I think it's going to be telling in the sense that win or lose, if the Patriots are competitive and it's a close game and they do a lot of things well, that's one thing. But suppose the Patriots get blown out 38-3 or something, that would be, wow, that would be like, oh my God, this thing's a disaster.
Mm-hmm. No, true. But the New England Patriots organization and the system that I've seen for all these years has been really run like a fine, smooth operation. And they've done that for 20 years. And so all of a sudden now there's a little adjustment and everybody gets all worked up and trying to say, well, this is not what it used to be. So people are sitting back and it's like changing jobs and you're going from one thing to another. And, you want it how it used to be. And it's not like that. And now, different people retire and personnel change and all that kind of stuff. And then you try to find a way to smooth it out at the end. And so, that's what Bill and the coaching staff have 2 months and 3 preseason games to try to get ready for week number 1. That it's as simple as that, Paul. You can't express it any other way because that's all the NFL gives you. It gives you that training camp, the preseason games, and hey, let's go get them. So, you learn on the fly, you learn on the go, and you hope you have the right personnel, whether it's coaches or whether it's players for this year's team. And then you evaluate beginning, middle, and end right on the fly. If this guy ain't cutting it, then I'm putting someone else in. And as game by game goes on, you make adjustments. And we watch Bill all the time grab his little clipboard, looks at it, checks this, writes a couple of things down, goes in at the half, sometimes goes right over to the bench, talks about what he sees. A lot of coaching, a lot of things going on, but it all has to fit and work together. And that's the only amount of time that you have to do it. So whether you change it or not, you have to find the people that you think can get the job done. I'm assuming he thinks he has the personnel, coaching, and players to get this team back to where it is. We'll see.
These spoiled Patriots fans, I'll tell you, we just want to go back to the Super Bowl and all this stuff. And, that Tom Brady, I got to tell you, it's so irritating because, when Tom Brady, I'm not taking anything away from him, okay? I'm not taking anything away from him. But when he was in the AFC East, the AFC East was terrible. It just was. It was terrible. It was like a joke. How would you like to have Dallas being in the AFC East in those days? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But the Patriots are in the AFC East. Okay, hey, that's the way it happened. They were fortunate and all that, So now Brady goes to the NFC. His division stinks again. And meanwhile, the Patriots in the AFC were just one loaded team after another. I mean, we got Russell Wilson over here now. Obviously, the AFC West is just freaking loaded, The AFC East, the Patriots have to play in. No joke anymore. Or Buffalo, even Miami's going to be tough, right? Pittsburgh is always a team that, traditionally is around. Denver, of course, as we mentioned before, Josh McDaniels got a good team over there in Vegas. I mean, how about Cincinnati? They went to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, the AFC compared to the NFC is loaded compared to the NFC. So I say to Tom Brady, this guy is smart. He goes to a team that's surrounded by all-stars, and now he's in a division that stinks and a conference that's mediocre. How about all that, huh?
It's Tom Brady. I mean, it's Tom Brady, Paul. It's just the way it is. And obviously, fans would have loved to have him finish his career right here in New England, a Patriot, always a Patriot, all that kind of stuff. I get it. I understand it. It didn't work out that way as much it did for the Gronk. You thought he'd finish there. He came out. Tom influenced him to come, and they went on from there, and they move on. Now, you have to play what's in front of you, Paul. That's just the way the schedule goes. Whatever they give you, you play in front of you. If the league happens to be poor at that time, which I thought you were right, I always thought when New England went into the AFC East, they would be 6-0 or 5-1 every year. I truly believe that when Tom was there. I never thought, they might lose a game in Buffalo or might lose a game in Miami or lose one in New York, but that's it. Other than that, I thought they'd always be 6-0 or 5-1 every time they played. 4-2 the worst because that league wasn't better. Now, that cycle has turned around, and now that league in the AFC East has kind of turned the page a little bit. At least Miami's gotten better, and obviously Buffalo as well. So that's nice to see. And then you're thinking at that time, well, hopefully we'll still have Tom and we'll be okay. But it didn't work that way. So, it's a new year, and you live with what's in front of you and the schedule that's presented to you.
All right, Labor Day weekend. It is back to school time. Back to school time for all those students out there. We don't have to worry about that. We're empty
Yes, it
nesters.
is.
We don't care if it's back to school, not back to school. We don't care about it. My wife's a retired teacher, so she doesn't care if it's back to school. Now, Chris is an educator, so he cares that it's back to school. And my son is an
I'm
educator, and he
back.
cares it's back to school. So you're back. You're up and running, right?
I'm back. We're up and running. And, even the kids, we got them in on Thursday.
Mhm.
And I got a couple of kids who come in, Patriot fans. I got some who are Kansas City fans, and they're already asking, hey, what do you think the Patriots are going to do this year? What do you think their record's going to be? So if you got a prediction out there, give us a call or give Paul a chat and let him know what you think the Patriots record's going to be, because it's right around the corner. College starts today, as it did, on Thursday too. Some good games Thursday night, some good games Friday, and some good ones again today in college football. And then it will be Patriots week next week. So let us know what you think right there. 774-762-6234. What will the Patriots record be this year?
All right, so Chris, let's do this game by game, because I'm going to do
I
a
can
game
do
by
it.
game because I don't really have a number really in my head. So if I go game
Okay.
by game, I want to see what I end up with. But then if I end up with a record that I don't like, I'm going to go back and try to maybe change one of the games around. But at Miami, first game, what do you think?
Yep.
Uh
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say the Patriots are going to go down there and steal one.
I say so too. I like
Yeah,
like
right.
New England. I do.
No kidding.
I think Bill's going to get in Tua Tagovailoa's head. He's going to run some things at him defensively. I'm not stuck on Tua yet, and I think you'll find a way to slow down Tyreek Hill, and they'll be fine. I like them winning in Miami.
All right, at Pittsburgh.
I like that one too. I like, for some reason, Bill loves to play Mike Tomlin, and I like the way he plays him. He knows what he runs. Tomlin kind of makes mistakes when he goes up against Bill. I don't know. It's just me. I see them coming out and going 2-0.
Wow, I kind of like him in that game too, and I also like him in the Baltimore game. Uh, there's no way they're coming out 3-0.
Now I'm going opposite there. The next two, listen, they play 4 games at Miami, at Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and at Green Bay. I like 2-2 after them 4 games. I don't know, which way it's going to be, but I
Right,
like 2-2 after those 4 games.
I'm going to say they lose Pittsburgh and win Baltimore, so we got them at 2-2. Okay, what now from there on? Where do we go from there? What's the next one now?
All right, so now we have 4 games: home to Detroit, at Cleveland, home to Chicago, and at the New York Jets. So now that's the middle of the road there, Paul, that I think New England must go 3-1. That's where I like them during that pan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have them at 5-3 after 8 games.
All right, so let's see. Win against Detroit. Cleveland's a toss-up. Should beat Chicago and should beat the Jets. So I'll say they lose to Cleveland. So you and I are in the same boat here. I get them 3-1 there,
Yeah.
plus the 2-2. So that's
so
5-3.
we have it 5-3 after 8. You agree with that?
I believe so. Yeah, I like that. Now the next group of games are really going to start getting rough.
Right. So you have Indy and the Jets in the next 2, and then at Minnesota.
Indy looked tough against the Patriots last year. I'm going to say they split those. So I'm going to say
okay.
Loss
and at Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh boy. Plus the game's on the road. Minnesota's not that good.
You tell me.
I'm going to try to be optimistic and say they win that one.
All right, I'm going to go opposite. I think in those 3 games they go 1-2.
Okay.
And so now I have them at 6-5 after 11.
Okay.
And you'll have them at 7-4. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now you have Buffalo home, at Arizona, and at Vegas.
Oh boy. Man, they could lose all 3 of those.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't see him winning any of those.
I am with you. I say they're 6-8 after 14.
And I'm at 7-7. Okay, all right, that's not bad. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Let's finish up. Cincinnati at home, Miami at home, and at Buffalo.
All right, so let me do this backwards here. I'll have to say, I mean, if they beat Buffalo either one of those times, it'd be a major upset, feather in their cap, but then they'll probably lose some other game against some weak teams. So, it balances out. So I'm going to say loss against Buffalo. So now they're one game under 500. I'm right along with what Karen Garigian said. Karen Garigian said 8-9. We're all in the 8-9, 9-8 thing over here.
Listen, I'm going 1-2, and I think they finished the season 7-10.
Okay, so let me see. Cincinnati, that's a Super Bowl team from last year. That's got to be a loss. Maybe they can. Well, if they beat Miami here, I got to go back and have them lose it down there. They're not going to beat Miami twice. There's no way in heck. So
the second one, remember, is in New England.
Yeah, right. So I'll give them a win there. If
Okay.
they win that one, I got them at 8 and. What have I got them? 8-9.
You got 8-9. I have 7-10. I think they go opposite of what they did last year.
And if they
Instead
lose,
of 10-7, they go 7-10.
If they win the Miami game in New England, I got to figure they're going to lose the one back here. And if that's true, then I'm with you at 7-10. Now let's go. Okay, we're you're at 7, I'm at 8. Okay.
Yep.
Now let's go back and kind of pick the swing. What would be like a swing game? Okay, like Buffalo is a definite loss, right? What about Pittsburgh? You think Pittsburgh is kind of that swing kind of a game? Pittsburgh's not a powerhouse. Pittsburgh's not a weak sister. They're kind of like somewhere in the vicinity of the Patriots, right?
Well, when you look at the schedule and when you stop after the first 11, and we said they would be 6-5, and I think you had 7-4, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The swing game to me is the Buffalo Bills at home. Because think about that now.
Really?
If you beat Buffalo, then you go out to Arizona with a lot of hype and a lot of momentum, and then you're at Vegas and then Cincinnati. So if you can get the hype train going and you beat Buffalo, now you sit back and say, here's our push to try to make the playoffs. I don't think they'll be able to do it, but I think that's the swing game that turns the season around for the New England Patriots to attempt to make the playoffs.
Well, to beat him, you're going to have to make him punt. So, but anyway.
You love that, boy. Oh, you love that. You're not going to live that season down right there.
Well, we spent all our time talking about Mac Jones, and for 2 games in a row, we couldn't force a punt. How come we never talk about the crappy defense? That defense was so overrated with a capital O. But anyway, all right, so I know what you're saying about kind of like swing game of the season. I'm talking about games against opponents that are kind of like them, that are not way better than them, like Buffalo, or way worse than them, like the Jets, games that they really need to, win. So like, for example, like Pittsburgh, I think kind of falls in that category.
Yeah, and it comes down to, as Ryan said, trying to identify with Pittsburgh without Ben Roethlisberger. So whether it's Kenny Pickett, whether it's Trubinsky, which is what Bill likes. Bill likes young quarterbacks that he can just go after and hammer and have them make mistakes. And compared to a Josh Allen, who's more seasoned and better than those two guys, I think he'll take advantage of those quarterbacks and make them. And they're going, wow, quarterback in Pittsburgh, and then I got to play Bill Belichick in the New England Patriots.
Oh, yeah, right.
I think those guys will be too hyped up and too nervous, and that's why I think they'll win that game.
Right. So Pittsburgh, I think, falls in the category of sort of like a 500 kind of a team. You know what I'm saying? I want to go through the schedule and pick like the 4 or 5 500, the 4 or 5 500 teams. So I imagine Pittsburgh would be one of them. What about Baltimore? Baltimore is kind of like, they're going to have their quarterback back, and when they have the quarterback, it's a different story. So I don't know. I think they're better than a 500 team, right?
I think they should be, as long as Lamar is healthy through the season. He wasn't last year, so I can't get a real take on Baltimore. But if he finishes a full season, yeah, I think they're better than 500.
Cleveland, right? What about Cleveland? That's a game that, you could see it going either way, I imagine.
Well, they don't have Watson, and they're not going to have him. And again, it's not It's not the starter they're looking for. So that's going to come down to quarterbacks. I mean, they got a good running back in Nick Chubb. They ended up getting Amari Cooper, but he's kind of getting older and banged up. So I'm not really stuck on Cleveland. I think they're a 500 or below 500 team.
I have them losing that game, but maybe I had to go back and rethink that one because you're right. Cleveland is sort of like at the crossroads. They're trying to figure out who they are, what direction they're going in. The fans are all upset with the whole thing that happened with a quarterback.
I agree.
Chicago, I guess, would be in the weaker category, right? Not really a 500 team. All right. Yep. We're hoping that the Jets. We're hoping that the Jets will stay down in the cellar. What about Indianapolis?
I think Indy's above. I think having Matt Ryan better than Carson Wentz. I think Matt. If Indy's Indy, Matt Ryan could be like a comeback player of the year. I mean, he could make some things happen because he's efficient in a way. He's with a new team. I think he needed to get out of Atlanta, get some more upside, and I think he can do that with Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, and a couple more guys they got out there in Indy. And Indy's not that bad, so I see them above 500.
All right, and Minnesota. Minnesota is kind of like a team that you kind of can't really put your finger on, right?
I don't. I like Dalvin Cook, but he always gets banged up. Kirk Cousins, I'm not stuck on him. I've seen him make some miserable mistakes at times out there. So, I think middle of the road kind of a team in the AFC North up there. So, NFC North. No, I got 500 for Minnesota.
How about Arizona and Vegas?
Well, the Arizona one, we know that they've played better and they've gotten better. So I think they're slightly above 500. Remember, they made the playoffs last year, but they were disastrous in that game, in the playoff game, and Murray did not play well. So he's got another year under his belt. Obviously, he's slick. He's like Lamar Jackson, but just not as big. But he can run. So I think they're above 500, though.
All right. And, of course, you got Josh McDaniel in Vegas.
Comes down to what Davante Adams brings to the table. And if Derek Carr, who, according to Davante Adams, could be a real good combination that they used to play in college together. And he's expecting the same thing. They got Josh Jacobs, good back. They got Waller, who's a great tight end. Renfro is a good receiver. So McDaniels has a good cast around them. I think the Raiders could make some noise this year, but it falls on the shoulders of Derek Carr. This is the year Derek Carr needs to prove that he's an elite quarterback.
I'm looking at Miami. Miami is, the Patriots lost twice to them last year, even though they had a 10-7 record. Yep. I'm thinking, they should have won the first game. They should have won the one in New England.
Yep.
They should have won that game. Isn't that the game that there was the fumble? Was that game? I'm trying to remember what happened.
So at the end, the second half.
Yeah, they had the game won and they fumbled the ball away.
Yeah, I think that's what.
So I mean, that was a fluky kind of a thing. But Miami, for this to be any kind of a good season, you got to at least split with Miami. I mean, Miami is going to be one of those sort of 500 teams. So the point I'm making is, Miami, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, Minnesota, that cluster of those 5 teams, because you got to figure they're going to beat the Jets, you hope, some of these weaker teams. They're probably going to lose to Green Bay and Buffalo and teams like that. But those teams in the middle, those 4 or 5 teams in the middle, you almost have to sweep them. You almost have to sweep those games or at least win most of them to get to 10 wins. You know what I mean? And that's what you want. You want to shoot for 10 wins, I would say, at least match last year. So it is going to, feels like it's going to come down to those games in the middle that they got to steal. Or like you pointed out, if they can just really steal one against Buffalo, that would be like, oh my God, it'd beat Buffalo, right? Yeah. But those games in the middle, you can't be blowing games against, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minnesota. You blow those games, you'll be 7-10, maybe even worse, maybe even more like what Ryan said.
Mm-hmm. No, I can agree with that. And, you throw in Cincinnati where you saw a team with Joe Burrow and Chase, Joe Mixon, and what they did last year and how far they went. Now, is that a one-year wonder? Is that a team that can do the same thing? Can teams, sit back and say, oh, wait a minute now, we can figure Cincinnati out, and things like that. So another intriguing team. But like I said, the 4 in the middle where Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, and the Jets. Those 4 right there really will tell you if New England has anything at all this year after those first 4 games. But definitely those 4 right there. If you want to make any attempt to make the playoffs, they have to go 4-0 or 3-1 against those teams. They just have to.
Wouldn't it be great if they could just split and go 2-2 in the first 4? Karen Garigian had them at 1-3.
That's
Most
what I
people
have.
do.
I got them 2-2.
But if you can just get out of those first 4 at 2-2, right?
Yep.
And then run the table on those 4 games that you just talked about. Now they're right up there, fighting for a wild card. Now we got a comment here from it's Brandon Bouch. That must be his
Brandon Bouchard
name, but that's Brandon Bouchard, I imagine.
Yep.
He's got him at 6-11. Oh,
all
my
right.
goodness.
Well, listen, I was 7-10, Paul, and he, he's going with Ryan. He's at 6-11. So I'm even going to put that down. Another 6-11. One was Ryan and one was Brandon. So, I think he's close to what we're thinking. Maybe a couple of games here and there may be different, but I think he's right on it, and we're close to a Patriot fan who knows this team well and what he thinks.
All right, I'm gonna be put down for 9-8.
Okay.
I just, as a fan, I just
you gotta be positive, Paul. You're above 500.
I'm better off when you ask me to give a prediction on games that I don't care about.
Yep.
I'm so much more accurate. But then when I got to make a prediction of a team that I'm emotionally connected to,
right,
I always want to err on the side of being higher because that's what I'm rooting for. So I don't want to be rooting for myself to be right. I want to root for my team to win. So I'm just going to go back and say, maybe they can steal some of these games here, these games. But couldn't you see the pads? You really can see it. I don't want to see it. I'm scared to see it. Couldn't you see them going 0-4? I mean, they could absolutely lose all 4 of those first games. They really could. I mean, we're predicting 2-2 or 1-3, whatever. But hey, all 4 of these teams are capable. I mean, Green Bay, that's going to be really tough going into Lambeau. Miami, they were 0-2 against last year. Baltimore's got their quarterback back. Pittsburgh is, they should beat Pittsburgh, but the game's in Pittsburgh. So I don't want to look at it as a disaster, but you certainly could see it. Like, you wouldn't be like, even though you're not predicting it, right? You wouldn't be like shocked out of your mind or anything.
I don't think so. I don't think I'd be shocked, but I don't see them just going 0-4. I don't see it. 1-3, maybe, but I don't see 0-4. I'd be really surprised in week 4. We're talking and we're saying, can you believe the New England Patriots are 0-4? I would be surprised by that.
Hey, next year, I was just reminded, they have $70 million in cap space. So maybe Bill is thinking, you know what? I'm kind of eyeball. I'm not going anywhere. They keep asking him, you're going to retire? He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. So maybe he's going to put the new system in. We're going to try to get in the 500 range somewhere. The fans are going to go ballistic because they're like, this is like me. This is 3 year of the plan. You know what I mean? And maybe he's gonna like, they got 10 rookies on the team that made the team, right? The linebackers are faster. They're putting in the Shanahan system. Now Mac Jones is in the 3rd year. Maybe next year is the year. Maybe they clear out the cap space and then they go for the big all-star, like the Tyreek Hill type player, and make a run.
Well, you're looking that far, like to say, hey, let's just throw this season away and move on. And
I'm doing the Hein Bloom.
Yeah,
throw the season away. Yeah.
Let's see what the season looks like first, Paul. And maybe if you are 0-4, then you can go, all right, this didn't work out. And
every once in a while,
I can't do that yet.
Every once in a while, I let something slip out that maybe wasn't that well thought out of. But when Chris actually keels over in laughter, then I know that I've gone off the rails.
You're going off the deep end right now.
I'm already all right. The hell with this season. They're going to be 7-10 or 8-9. So what about next year? Well, it's only because one of our commentators said that they have $7 million in cap space. So I don't know. Yeah, I say, 1 year at a time.
That's
so.
Right.
I will say this, and even some of the Boston commentators like Felger and stuff like that will say, these games are much more interesting than they were during some of those years when they had Brady and the weak AFC East. I mean, there would be games where I wouldn't even watch it. I'd leave the house and then I'd check the score and it was like 21-0 in the first quarter. I knew they were going to win the game. It wasn't even close. Now every single game is like a playoff game. So you were like, welcome to my world.
Well, commentators in what you listen to and predictions, you can listen to Felga Maz. I mean, any kind of talk shows that come out. It's as much as to say, even in college football, that everybody that I've seen and everybody I talked about has already written Ohio State as winning the NC championship. It already predicted everybody's taking Ohio State. So they're already like a 17-point favorite over Notre Dame today. They have them running the table and going all the way from everybody that I've seen, everybody I've talked to, everything I've listened to, over Alabama, over Georgia, everything's Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State. So, they could easily lose a couple of games and all them guys go right down the tube. So you take opinions, you take what it's worth. As much as our show, people take what we think and say, nah, man, Paul's not even close. What do you want to blow that up for? Come on, this is our season. We can do it. We're the Patriots. Whatever it is. And so, that's why they play the game, and that's why we do our shows and make predictions and analyze each game and think every week what it is they need to do to get better or get worse, or how they got worse, or what it is. So this is what makes sports fun, and just looking forward to a new football season.
All right, so let's see. I'm going to put this down here. We've got Ryan. Ryan's at 6-11.
6-11.
Brandon Bouchard.
He was 6-11.
6-11. We've got Chris Santos at 7-10.
7-10.
And actually, we're going to put down Karen Gregian. You know what I mean? Because she didn't make a prediction.
Well,
she said
5-12.
No, she said 8-9.
Oh, 8-9. Okay.
Yeah, she did. She said 8-9. Believe it or not.
8-9. And you're going 9-8.
I'm going to go 9-8.
Okay. The positive Paul Santos.
I really want to say 10-7, but I can't. I just can't do it.
Positive Paul Santos.
Well, you know why? Because I'm looking at these. I'm looking at the offensive line, and you're talking about the commentators. One commentator was talking about, I think it was Bedard. Greg Bedard. He was like, I'm watching the thing, and I'm watching a play, and the left tackle was supposed to do this, but he did that, and then the right guard was supposed to do this, but he did that, and then the tight end was supposed to block that guy. He didn't do it. And it was sort of like, remember that game, Electric Football? You hit the button and everybody's running around. Everybody's running around. Nobody knows where they're supposed to go. So, and then there's one of the people said too, I don't know if it wasn't Karen Gregian, but it was one of the, experts that watches the practice. They say that Mac Jones drops back and he's got happy feet because he's looking around because he doesn't trust the offensive line. If you don't trust the offensive line, I don't care who you are. You saw Mahomes in that Super Bowl against Brady where he had the 2 injuries on the offensive line. He was running for his life the whole Super Bowl, one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league. So you got no offensive line. It's like pitching in baseball. You don't have an offensive line. You got nothing.
Well, and I think that was evidence in the Raiders game where the pocket was collapsing. And that's why I think you saw Mac Jones being upset on the sidelines a couple of times. And, of course, some other things and issues that they had. They need Brown. They need the new kid, Strange. He's going to make mistakes. He's a rookie, but he's big enough to overcome it. Win and Oniwu to really get something together, whether it's scheme blocking, whether it's, picking up blitzes to really help Mac and not get happy feet and try to get out of the pocket that fast. So, yeah, that's something that I'm looking at week 1 to see how they can improve on that, or if they have improved and made some adjustments to handle Miami's front 4 coming at them, or some blitzes.
Have you had a chance to think about a Dallas Cowboys record?
I have not. What? We'll probably be on next week, Paul, before the start of the season.
Yes.
And I'll have it for you then.
Yeah, I want to see what, you can go down, and you don't have to necessarily go big game by game, but come back and see because it is harder when it's your team. You try to make a prediction, you know what I mean? Okay.
No problem with that.
So we got a few down here. We'll be looking forward to Michael Consaccio, who will give us his prediction, and some of the other Patriot fans and some of our regulars. I know that Mr. Guarantee, he said 14-3. He had to have been joking. He had to have. And after Patriots have a great year, he can walk around with his chest out,
Oh, of course.
But obviously he was joking. But I do think he thinks, because we've talked before, I think he thinks that they're going to be better than we think. So let's see.
Well, the other thing too, Paul, is if you're not a Pats fan and you want to give us your prediction of your team, give us a call on that, or type it in and say, hey, I think San Fran's going to be, 14-3 or whoever, or whatever team you like. So let us know that, and we can discuss that as well.
All right. Yeah, we're going to get Chops to give us the prediction on
Well,
from San Francisco 49ers.
sure. You
All
get
right.
some
We'd like
teams
to
in there.
take the opportunity to thank our sponsors, John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street, New Bedford, johnseedlaw.com. You can go there to get more information. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville. Citywide Glass, 3 locations in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. And if I didn't do it on the air, congratulations on your new coaching position, which you are on your way to right now.
When I leave here, yes, I have practice today at Stonehill College. I am the assistant tennis coach and been doing it for a couple of weeks now. A lot of young kids, a lot of freshmen moved up to Division I, so we were able to recruit some. Have some international students as well from France and Australia, and a good group of kids learning a lot, and hopefully try to make them better athletes and better players, but also obviously better people after it's all said and done. So having a great start, looking forward to it.
Well, obviously, since you're teaching at an education level,
Yeah.
trying to be a role model and make them a better person is really the ultimate goal in athletic competition when someone's a student athlete. But I do want to ask you, now that they have, all these, abilities to look back at film and all that, you always see like Mac Jones and Bill Belichick goes, yeah, I got to look at the tape, I got to look at the film and all that. So you go back and look at tape and film and go over it with your students?
Not more on about film, Paul, but pretty much more of I write down what I see when they're playing, and then I'll go over it and say, hey, do you remember this? Unless I get someone from the school that's filming it, and I haven't had that confrontation yet with someone maybe to do that. But I like to jot down and say, hey, listen, you were serving first serves 30%. That has to increase to 50%. Things like that. Even if you take something off, get that first serve in, get some confidence, or, you hit 10 approach shots, and 10 approach shots, you missed 8 and only made 2. There's 8 unforced errors, things like that. So I kind of jot down as the matches go on, and we talk about it and discuss it, and then try to figure things out from there, and then work on it during practices.
Yeah, fantastic. It's very interesting. Maybe a technique that you picked up or cheating one way or the other and all that kind of stuff. And then you can.
Well, technique. They're college kids now. Their technique is pretty solid. If anything, you tweak it, and you tweak it like by that much, because they got their own style and their own system, and you just got to kind of tweak it. It's not easy just to drop what you do and start something new. You got to do that a lot in the younger years. And right now, you can't do it here at this point in time. You just got to tweak some things.
All right. So you're not going to throw a whole bunch of stuff out and start new. In other words, trash everything. Trash everything.
Not really.
Trash everything from before and just start a whole new thing. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
I do like little tweaks of one thing at a time, Paul. One thing at a time. When I feel that looks good, then I go on to something else. I can't throw all that stuff at them. I just don't think they'll understand all of it.
You're not going to throw the Shanahan style tennis approach to the.
Nope.
All right.
No West Coast tennis offense.
Yeah, no West Coast. Hey, Serena Williams is free now, so you can reach out if you have a question or something like that. All right, Chris, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Always a pleasure. We're looking forward to the football season. Thanks to our commentators and our callers. And we hope to see you very soon here on Santos and Sports. Hey, have a great weekend. Be safe. Enjoy time with your family. And we'll talk to you soon.